Mark Lamping, President, Jaguars, Executive Committee, Board, Fulham. Obviously diverse, but even more interesting than that, Cardinals, Anheuser-Busch, Meadowlands. You've run the gamut. You've had a lot of sports experience, obviously.
Yeah, I've been in and out of a lot of jobs. I guess that's one way you could look at it. But
yeah.
No, I've been blessed to have some great jobs and, more importantly, some great bosses.
Well, and even more importantly, as far as experience is concerned, perspective, you've had brand building experience as well. So the International Series starts in 2007, but the Jaguars recent and now interested in a long-term deal. How do you build the brand of the Jaguars basically in two continents?
Well, you have to work hard at it, that's for sure. You know, the first thing that has to happen is you have to be given the platform to do it. And, you know, when the NFL was looking for a team to commit to play multiple years in London, you know, Shad Khan was willing to raise his hand to commit the Jaguars to do it, to help the league and help all 32 teams learn about what the London market is all about. But just as important, we have some very fundamental, unique issues in Jacksonville that playing in London each year helps us solve.
Do the people in Jacksonville believe this is an enhancement to their aspect of the Jaguar brand?
I don't think there's any question. You know, on this trip today, in fact, Chad and I were at a breakfast meeting this morning with the current mayor of Jacksonville, with the former mayor of Jacksonville, the current head of the Chamber of Commerce. And we were calling on a company trying to convince them to move 300 or 400 jobs from the UK to Jacksonville. So the city of Jacksonville, whether it's political leaders or whether it's the business leaders or even our fans, they understand that by us playing one game a year in London, we are a stronger franchise in Jacksonville. And whenever you can put the name Jacksonville along with the name London, you know Jacksonville gets a pretty good benefit from that.
Let's keep talking synergies, and we'll get back to numbers. So Shad Khan has a global auto relationship business as well. Talk about the synergies and what he's done here, for example.
Well, there's the synergies as it relates to London. You know, starts with the Jaguars coming here. Shad owns the Fulham Football Club, and there's synergies that we work very closely with Fulham on. And you know, Shad is a very, very successful a businessman, you know, in the auto parts business, and you know, when we come to London, probably wherever Shad travels, the people that are in charge of that industry in those respective countries want to sit down with Shad and pick his brain, and you know that happened today as well. So, you know, there are great opportunities to not only have each of the entities, you know, whether it's the Jaguars or whether it's Fulham, grow on their own right, but we think there's tremendous opportunities for synergies and combined leverage, which we think can strengthen both teams and brands.
If you and Shad make a commitment to play a game a year here, at least until the published reports 2030 or beyond, you must believe that the Jaguars can de facto be an international brand out ahead of or with synergies with the NFL.
Well, we hope so. You know, I know that we could use the brand building assistance, that's for sure. And the results in you know, in London have been very, very encouraging. You know, this is our third consecutive year you know, that we've been here. We've just committed to be here for another 5 years. We'd like to stay for another 5 after that at least. And our business in Jacksonville, even though we play one fewer home game, is much stronger than it was before we started this. We're generating more revenue in Jacksonville by playing 9 games than when we played 10 games. And we have a huge amount of incremental revenue that's coming from London on top of that. Almost 15% of our total local revenue right now is being sourced in London. We've gone from the 31st most popular team in London to the 10th. And almost all the teams that are ahead of us are the teams that you could guess, the teams that have been around for a long time and have had a tremendous amount of success. We launched a fan club 3 years ago. This weekend we'll go over 50,000 members in that fan club. We're the only team that does a customized a website that is updated each and every year that's targeted towards Jaguar fans in the UK. So, you know, there's a lot of hard work going, and the response has been good.
30-second primer for the business fan in the States about home game London dispersal sharing 101. Is it the same revenue sharing formula relative to tickets, and does the league reimburse certain expenses? What's the nature of the relationship?
Well, it's very similar, as if we were having this game in Jacksonville. But the difference is we're playing in a much bigger stadium, and the tickets are priced much higher. So we have a volume benefit, we've got a price benefit, and those two combined, along with some sponsorship development that has occurred here through the NFL that we benefit from as it relates to our game, those significantly outweigh the incremental cost of coming over here. So our margin on playing a game here in London is significantly higher than the margin of that game had it been played this week in Jacksonville.
As the NFL does its resolution a month ago and increases the NFL international mandate through 2025, you effectively are the pioneer, poster child, educator of most of the other 31 owners as to the benefits.
That was part of the commitment that Chad made, and we back that commitment by, we have several full-time employees now here in London working on behalf of the Jaguars. We, invest over $1 million a year in market development activities. Those market development activities are primarily focused on building the game of American football here in London and throughout the UK, and those types of investments will provide residual benefits to the entire league, and as such to all 32 clubs.
What's the nature of the working relationship with Mark Waller and Tassel and NFL International? Daily, regular, synergistic?
Well, it depends on the time of the year, but very strong. If you're objective, and you take a look at what Mark Waller and Alistair Kirkwood and the entire NFL international team has done since they started the international series here in London, you can't help but be very, very impressed. So it's a very high quality group of people that are working. We work constantly with them. Part of our responsibility is to provide that team perspective that only a team can provide. And it's great give and take, and I think it's working the way it should work.
And when we talked to Mark Waller yesterday about life in the new Roger Goodell, I got to make $25 billion a year challenge, so you do it. It all comes down. He counts on the Jaguars very significantly to help in that strategy.
Well, how can the NFL continue to grow at high double digits each and every year in the United States? It's hard to do that, particularly when you know the television ratings better than anyone. So it's like every one of the top 50 television programs each year ultimately going to be an NFL game. So the opportunity for growth, obviously, there's growth in front of us in the United States, but there's significant revenue pools that are available outside the United States, and that's where the league should be fishing. And we're happy to be on the boat with them here in the UK.
Speaking of the boat, what is the nature of the discussion that will ultimately satisfy the UK expansion, relocation, 2 home games, 16 games a year issue? How's that process going to work?
Well, at some point in time, there needs to be an assessment that says London will have a fan base that's deep enough to be able to support a team through good years and bad, through strong schedules and weak schedules, year in and year out. And while the market has improved significantly and continues to grow very fast, I don't think anyone believes that London is there today, but I think everyone agrees that London will get there at some point in the not-too-distant future. And then when that happens, it's up to the league and the 32-member clubs to determine how do they address that market opportunity.
Pre-2007, you'd hear a lot of grumblings about getting on a plane. It's a long flight. How do we deal with these guys? There's jet lag. There's a lot of time for owners to come back and worry about coach's future. Do we hear a lot of that grumbling?
I don't know. I grumbled when I had to fly from Jacksonville up to Portland to meet with the people at Nike. So, I think it's part of what we do. There's been great advances in terms of, not only, how you treat your body, what you do while you're on the plane, even some of the innovations that have happened with the composite structure of the fuselages on airplanes that allow for higher oxygen content. So, the reality is a flight from New York to London is no different than a flight from Miami to Seattle, and it's nobody feels sorry for us having to be on a long flight. I'll tell you that for sure.
Isn't it interesting that you started as a beverage maven, now you're a aerospace engineer?
No,
very well done.
I just listen a lot to other people who I think know what they're talking about.
Let's talk for a couple minutes about Fulham. We'll be there. Obviously, Shad's team as well. Explain some of the synergies between Fulham, the Jaguars, and otherwise, the Visit Florida sponsorship.
Yeah, let's first start with the fact that the Jaguars are coming over here each and every year, and it's great for us to have, boots on the ground that we can understand this market, and Fulham plays a great role in that. Fulham is one of the most historic clubs in all of English football. It's the oldest London soccer club. Craven Cottage is the United Kingdom soccer equivalent of Wrigley Field and Fenway Park. There's nothing like it. It sits on the north bank of the Thames. It's a spectacular place in the middle of one of the most prestigious residential areas of all of West London. So, in and of itself, it's a very prestigious property. And we're in the same business. We're in the business of attracting customers and doing it under the banner of sports and entertainment. We try to find synergies in everything that we do as it relates to sports science, training techniques. But the first ones obviously happen on the business side. We're working very closely with the people at Fulham on a major renovation of Craven Cottage. And you don't have to look any further than the front of the Fulham jersey. The kit sponsor, the primary sponsor of Fulham Football Club is Visit Florida. And that deal was done in Jacksonville, Florida, not in London.
So the other issue, which is kind of interesting about that whole economic issue relative to British soccer and European soccer, explain to the casual American business fan what it's like to own an asset that's subject to relegation on an annual basis.
Well, imagine for a moment you're a New York Mets fan, and then you have a bad year, and you find out that now you're in AAA and you're going to be playing the Buffalo Bisons and some other teams like that. So it's one of the most beautiful and one of the worst elements of European soccer and football here in the UK, where the lowest teams in each division. There's 4 professional leagues in the UK. Each year, there's teams that get forced down from one league to the next, and each year there's the opportunity for teams to move from one league to the next. And it's there's each year 3 teams drop from the Premier League into the Championship, and each year 3 teams from the Championship go up to the Premier League. The Championship where we are right now is filled with many big soccer clubs that many American soccer fans are very, very familiar with. Leeds United is in the Championship, along with us. We played them on Wednesday night. But it also comes with a significant financial hit when you move from one league to the next. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for the short-term operator. So if you're in it for the long term, and if you like the fundamental infrastructure of a club, and in this case, Shad really likes the fundamental infrastructure of the Fulham Football Club, old club, great grounds, historic franchise. The fan base is, on average, the highest educated in the UK. The fan base, on average, is the most wealthy. So it's a very, very prime target. And we have to do some fixing as it relates to the infrastructure of the performance side of Fulham. And, we're very confident that will get done, and Fulham will be back up in the Premier League. But if you look over the history of Fulham, it's spent more years out of the top division than in the top division, although it had a run of 12-plus years in the Premier League. So, it's our goal to get back up there. Do we like being in the Championship? Of course we don't. Is our goal to get into the Premier League? Yes, it is, as soon as we possibly can. But are we pulling our hair out other than through natural causes? No, we're not.
What's it like, and you're in the meetings, and Shad is in them in a more active way, to sit in a board meeting in the NFL and see $5.78 billion of revenue shared from television on a yearly basis, then go to the other board and scratch your way up and see if you can even participate a little bit? What's that?
Well, it's different. It's different scales, but keep in mind the cost of entry is different in both of those leagues as well. Yeah. So if you believe Forbes, Shad owns an asset in the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's worth $1.4 billion, and Fulham is worth a fraction of that. But strategically, it is of great importance because of how important London is to supporting the larger asset, the $1.4 billion asset in Jacksonville.
Yeah. So, kind of in conclusion, 10 years from now, look at that crystal ball based on your London experience. What does the NFL UK asset look like?
Well, if things go as I would expect them to go, I think within 10 years, without a question, people will be looking at London the same way they're looking at Los Angeles, saying that market is strong enough to support an NFL team. Should we put one there? And it happens first with the league believing that it can happen, and then it happens by an overwhelming majority of 32 owners believing that having a franchise in London full-time is the right idea. And then it's either an expansion team or a team that chooses to relocate there. So that's what I see in 10 years. I don't know that a team is going to be here then, but I am confident that there will be a market that's out there that can support an NFL team within 10 years here in London.
Finally, and probably the most important question to you, aren't you happy that you are here knowing that your Cardinal baseball team kind of ended it and then the Cubs got ended by the Mets? Where does that all sit with you?
Well, I have to look at it this way. It was like the perfect ending of a terrible October for me, you know? The Cardinals lost, you know, which I hate to say it, but you could see it coming because they were limping the last 2 weeks, and it was a heroic season by the players with all the injuries they had. And like to lose, please lose to anybody but the Cubs. Right. And then I did feel a little better when the Cubs got swept, even though, you know, I would put the Mets not that far, you know, below the Cubs in terms of my teams I don't want to see do well, but I was very happy for the New York Mets and their fans because they took the Cubs out.
Well, it ain't over yet, and we'll see what happens to them as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
All right,
Appreciate it.
take care.
Okay.